What is up, Heist YouTube land? I wanted to do a quick little update video. So this one's not going to be your typical, transitions and music and Amazon stuff. This is really just kind of a business update, update on my thoughts on Amazon and just a general life update. Looking behind me here, you can see that the seasons have changed here in Park City, Utah. We're definitely full into spring despite having some good late snow here the last couple weeks. In fact, the ski resort's just closed today, so I just wrapped up my last skiing day of the year, and it got me thinking, you know what? Maybe I just do a quick little update video, no bullshit, just kind of chatting to the camera and give you guys a little bit of a glimpse into where my head's at right now. So I guess first to rewind the tape a little bit for those that haven't been a part of my journey here for the last couple of years, or at least you might have forgotten. Just about a year ago, I guess we're coming up at like 10-month mark or something like that, I sold my first Amazon brand that I started from scratch. So that really took place last kind of May, June timeframe, and was a pretty big doozy as far as my life is concerned. I mean, it really just kind of changed the trajectory and kind of concepts that I had on life. So sold that business, left my executive career. So that was kind of gave me the freedom, so to speak, to be able to kind of pursue entrepreneurial things full time. If you remember last June, that's when like the COVID booster shots and stuff happened. So I went to my first Amazon conference and kind of fully went into the world again. So it was a pretty big transformational experience and really heavy emotionally, right? Like you go on these highs and lows. Going through the exit of a business is a pretty stressful, in-depth emotional process. So I kind of came up the other side of that. And if I'm honest, I was pretty tired. I mean, you got to think I've been building a number of different brands from scratch. I was working my executive day job. I was doing this YouTube channel. And frankly, I was a little bit burnt out and just kind of needed to hit the pause button for a little bit. So the better part of June, July, and maybe some of August, I kind of just fully just enjoyed and sat back and kind of took things in and didn't do a whole lot, which is, I think, is one of the benefits of an Amazon business. You can kind of work in bursts, right? There's moments where it's a lot of work and a lot of stress. And then there's moments where you can kind of sit back and relax a little bit. And then I was like, okay, well, what's next, right? Like I've achieved this thing that I've been thinking for years and years and years to do. I've been trying to break free, live life on my own terms and not work a normal job. I'd kind of done that. And then you have a heavier and a deeper question, which is what's next? And frankly, that's kind of a struggle that I had during that last summer, just kind of thinking about what I wanted to do. And I really landed on, well, I've now seen the light. I've kind of fantasized about this life for a really long time and building a business and building a multi-million-dollar business. And like achieving that made everything kind of real for me. And I kind of wanted to shout from the rooftops for other folks, like, here's how you do it. It's not rocket science. You can do it too. And that kind of set me on my next obsession. I've got really kind of an obsessive compulsive personality. And when I decided to do something, I kind of go full bore. So that's when I created the FBA Blueprint. And honestly and truly, it was like 2 months that I probably overcooked it a little bit. I was doing 12, 14-hour days for 2 months plus, and just like hyper obsessed and focused about getting that thing out into the world kind of in September, October, which is this like false launch date that I had. So that took up the next couple months. And then we launched that course and it succeeded beyond my wildest expectations and was a really, really cool experience on a really, really cool year. And then I went to Texas for 6 weeks. So that 6-month period went by in a flash. And if I'm honest, I was focused on Amazon. I was doing the things that you need to do on a day-to-day basis. I'd built up a team and some systems to really help kind of manage the day-to-day. But I wasn't like hyper passionate or focused on the growth of that business. So we'll get into update number 1, which is just really general Amazon updates for my business and kind of how I'm thinking about Amazon. So first of all, I think like a lot of people, I think you see screenshots in Facebook groups and all kinds of stuff about numbers and all the rest of it. Straight up being honest, the last 8 months up until probably the latter half of Q1, my Amazon business has shrunk like 10 to 30% depending on the month. Some of that was COVID comps. So I'm in the outdoor space, so that saw a really big bump during COVID. So some of that's just a macro correction. A lot of it though is like more competitiveness, more ad dynamics and things like that have really kind of compressed things. Plus I just, wasn't falling asleep completely, but wasn't really hyper focused on growth. So we didn't launch a lot of products. We didn't do a lot of growth initiatives that you need to do to grow an Amazon business. You can take a month off, you can take a quarter off, but if you take 6, 12 months off, it can definitely catch up to you. And we definitely saw that within that business. So Q1, as I started to see kind of the sobering numbers from Q4, I'm like, well, shit, I've kind of taken it too easy for too long. We really put things into hyper gear. I hired somebody that's kind of my right-hand man now to help me take things to the next level. and we expanded internationally, and we actually saw insane growth in Canada, which I'll get to here in a little bit, and really kind of built a roadmap for 22 on launching new products. And one of the lessons learned from that experience was definitely the fact that you've got to launch new products. If you don't, it will catch up to you eventually. I think that you've got kind of a 6-month launch window. Maybe a couple years you can get away with a product, but you will start to see a decline, and you need to fill the coffers with new products, new growth avenues to be able to fill those growth gaps that will exist on a long enough timeline. So that was a good lesson learned, and again, the international markets just kind of blew up for us, which was a total positive, which was great. And then the other dynamic that I want to talk about, which is just, you know, the new reality, and you just got to, you know, face the facts and adjust accordingly, is ad costs have gone up quite a bit in the US marketplace specifically. We've seen that a ton. So our tacos, you know, which we like to historically keep between like 8 and 12%. I think the new normal is like 14 to 18%. So we've definitely seen a bump in that 5 to 7% range, which tends to be what I've seen from other people in the space as well. So ad costs are going up. But I think more critical than ad costs, at least in the US marketplace, is the organic placements have been significantly reduced. So we see not only more ads being served up, but there's more Amazon recommendations, editorial recommendations, what are the highly rated products. So your chances, if you're not really in the top 5 organic, have definitely slipped substantially. And so that's definitely been something that we've been paying attention to. And then a final quick update, I guess, if you wanted to put it in the camp of the bad news variety, if you guys remember, and I'll post a link down below and above on a launch that we did for a supplement brand, which came out the gates and did fantastic and kind of did exactly what I thought it was going to do. The target was kind of in that 15 to 30 grand a month range for that product. So it was definitely like a single or a double, and was humming along pretty well. And it was for about 4 or 5 months. And you think, you know, things are, you know, difficult in China, and like moving domestic solves a lot of problems. Well, we had a very specific colored capsule that we use with that particular product. And the lead time went from like 30 days on that capsule. We usually order about 1 million capsules at a time. And it went to 7 months. So long story short, that brand we had to kind of park, and we're still kind of waiting to get the supply chain stuff back with that. So if you're wondering whatever happened to that supplement brand, it's still alive, still chugging, but we're just waiting to kind of get some kinks worked out in the supply chain. So generally speaking, I would say it's like, I don't know, like a C+, B-, the Amazon brand business. I can't expect a lot because we didn't put a ton of effort in the things that you need to do to grow an Amazon business here last little bit. And we're starting to see, as we put our backs back into it here in the early part of 2022, things starting to really kind of grow again, which is cool. But I'd say it's, you know, like I said, C+, B-. But now, you know, I'm still super excited. I mean, the dynamics are harder. It's definitely not as easy as it was 2 years ago for sure. But queuing up some product growth, queuing up international growth. We've been super pumped with Canada. We've seen Canada absolutely blow it off. I think we're doing about 20% of our US sales in Canada now, so that's been super exciting. We're now in UK, Germany, Italy. We're looking at Japan as a market. So I think international growth we're super excited about. And then focusing on these kind of niches where we think we can win for new product expansion. And really thinking deliberately about product development and offers, and where can we actually punch above our weight and compete really effectively. And I think that you've got to be really thoughtful moving forward in the new Amazon on the new products you decide to develop and where you decide to compete. But we've definitely started to look at that to kind of cover some of the growth gaps, and starting to see some really exciting signals coming out of that. So long story short, I would say like the last 8 months, kind of meh on the Amazon business, but the last 3-ish months starting to get excited again and really kind of interested to see this thing play out in the future. One other dynamic, I think, because of the ad costs on the Amazon platform, is I think that you've really got to have a diverse set of traffic. You can't rely only on Amazon organic. You can't rely only on Amazon pay-per-click. So we're looking a lot at some things around audience building, external ads, paid traffic, YouTube, influencers, and even some off Amazon channel stuff, whether it be retail, other online marketplaces, etc. So I think that's definitely got to be a part of the playbook to cover some of the gaps that may exist in the Amazon marketplace. So let's talk about the Amazon FBA industry. And this one's been interesting. You know, when I started this YouTube channel, as most of you guys know that have been here for a while, I was literally just bored during COVID. And frankly, I didn't like what a lot of other people in the space were talking about. I kind of thought it was BS, and I thought they were coming from a place that was more about money and less about really providing value. And I wanted to kind of disrupt that a little bit, and that was a big part of this channel. And as I've gotten more involved and the followers have gotten bigger, you know, you start to get invited to podcasts, you start to meet other people, your peers in the kind of Amazon influencer space, you start to go to events. And long story short, and maybe I'm a bit of a crusty dude to begin with, and that's probably true too, is I just really didn't like being part of that. I call it, cover your earmuffs if you got kids around, but I kind of call it the Amazon circle jerk, right? Where it's like the same 8 to 12 people talking about the same stuff, going to conferences all the time, talking about their college level courses or flashing screenshots and doing promotions in Facebook and LinkedIn, and I got sick of it, if I'm honest. And so I've deliberately taken a bit of a step back from the public scene in the Amazon sphere. So I've said no to a lot of podcasts. I didn't go to Prosper this year as an example, which is a big Amazon conference trade show. I've been saying no to a lot of conferences and trade shows, really because I wanted to just, take a step back from that. I think that the more you get in kind of the eye of the hurricane, so to speak, I think the less perspective that you have. So I definitely wanted to kind of preserve my perspective. So I've taken a step back, but there's 2 events, kind of my criteria now for whether it's doing a podcast, doing an event, going somewhere to travel, is I want it to be a location that I've never been and or that I'm really excited to visit. And or there's just people that I feel like I'm personally aligned with, that I've got the same value system, et cetera, as them. And I do have 2 events lined up that I'm super, super excited about, despite the fact that I've taken a step back. One of which is Danny McMillan's Seller Sessions Live, which is going to take place the early part of May. I'll leave a link down below in case you guys are checking that out. If you're going, let me know, hit me up in the comments. We should definitely grab a drink on me. But I really respect and love Danny. I think that he's done so much for the community. So he checks that box for my new criteria. Plus I've been to about 14 countries in Europe, but I've never been to the UK. So I'm super excited to go to the UK and check that out. So I'm really, really excited about Seller Sessions Live. As well, one of my best buddies in the space I'm super aligned with, Sharon Evan, is also going to be there. So I'm super excited to meet her in the flesh for the first time. And then the other event, which is literally checking off a lifelong dream and bucket list item for me, is I'm actually going down to the southern hemisphere of Australia for an event with the Endgame boys. If you guys don't know the Endgame network, type it in Facebook and join the group. Literally some of the best people in the Amazon space and some of my best friends in the Amazon space invited me to come down to Sydney, Australia in the middle of September to do a presentation, be part of that. So I'm going to do an extended kind of a vacation / time in Australia. And I know I've got a really big loyal community here within the Heist channel that are from the Southern Hemispheres. So that one is called the Southern Seller Fest. And again, I'll drop a link down below. If you live in Australia and or New Zealand, you absolutely need to go to that. And if you've ever toyed with the idea like me and wanted to go visit Australia, I think it's going to be the trip of a lifetime. So really, really excited about that. So I'm going to do 2 events, but if you haven't seen me in the podcast scene, if you haven't seen me on Facebook throwing screenshots up and kind of talking what a lot of people talk about in the industry, I've just decided to take a step back. And nothing against those people that are going to events and doing stuff, to each their own, but I decided to take a deliberate step back this year. But I'm very excited about those 2 events. Last business update on the FBA Blueprint course. I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I kind of overcooked it and went really hard on that thing to build it, and kind of might have worn myself out and burned myself out a little bit, but I'm really, really proud of kind of giving birth to that baby, so to speak. We now have a community of, I think it's like 260 some odd students, somewhere in that range, which has absolutely blown me away. I didn't think it was ever going to be that big the first year. So that's been really cool, and really starting to kind of get a deeper relationship with people that are in that community has been super fun. So one thing that did come out of that launch is that some people were like, damn it, Adam, you came out with a high ticket course. I thought you were like the everyman's kind of YouTube and Amazon guru dude. And so I did that deliberately for a lot of reasons that we don't need to get into in this video. Maybe I'll cover it at another time. But I've been thinking really the last 6 months, like, hey, how do I make that a little bit more accessible? So stay tuned. There's going to be kind of 2 different versions of the FBA Blueprint. In its current iteration is going to stay, which is basically 150 plus videos, 250 plus SOPs, and like a system around that. Community Q&A calls, more direct relationship, mentorship, things like that. That's going to kind of exist as it has historically. But I'm also going to be doing another version that's a little bit more like, hey, if you just want the videos and you just want to peel behind the curtain and look at some of the deep dive strategies we deploy, but you don't want to pay money for a higher ticket kind of offering like that. I'm building something out like that that's going to basically be videos and course materials only. So if that's something that you may be interested in, and maybe were a little bit bummed out when I launched that course and thought it was a little bit too expensive, if you're watching this video and it's live, there'll be a link down below if it's live. And or if you're watching this video when it first drops, there's probably going to be a wait list for that. So go ahead and check the link down below. So it's just business updates. In general, I want to bring you guys up to speed with where my head's at with business. Now, in terms of life updates, and I think that, coming out of the exit, which was like this amazing dopamine hit, and experiencing that, kind of taking a couple months off, building the course, having amazing success with that, and just kind of going through really a roller coaster emotional ride from a business standpoint has really changed my perspective on happiness. I dropped a video in December when I was spending some time in Texas about kind of happiness and the perfect average day. And that's been something I've been really focused on for my own kind of happiness and mental satisfaction. Like, what are the things I care about and want to do in life? So I've been really focused on, hey, how do I live my day-to-day existence such that it fulfills me, it makes me happy? Am I working on projects I care about? Am I working with people I like? Am I working on things that I find fulfilling? And then from a day-to-day standpoint, right? Like, am I hanging out with my dogs? Am I going skiing? Am I going mountain biking? Like, all those things that I did this for in the first place, which weren't money-oriented, am I doing those? So I've been really hyper-focused on that. And I think one of the key things that's come out of that for me is that you've got to subtract stuff to make that happen. You've got to say no to people. You've got to say no to meetings. You've got to not hang out with people that you may not be fully aligned with. You may need to block some people on Facebook. In my case, for the Amazon example, which I talked about, you got to say no to podcasts. You got to not go to conferences. You got to stop paying attention to people that you don't like in the space. And some of that stuff's unnatural. It's not necessarily in alignment with how society works, but you got to say no, and you got to be a bit of a dick sometimes to protect your sanity, to protect your happiness, to protect your perfect average days. So it's definitely been a massive lesson for me, is kind of deducting and making sure that I'm focused on the things that I know bring me happiness, and making sure that I make that a cornerstone of every decision I make and every day-to-day activity that I deploy. So I thought this was gonna be like a 10-minute video. I've already kind of gone over a quick update, but hopefully just this raw shoot from the hip, not a whole lot of planning kind of video, was cool without a whole lot of After Effects and whatever else. So hopefully it was valuable. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe. In terms of what's next, I did like something like 150 plus videos only shooting and editing on my own, but I have actually hired a video editor, so that's definitely what's next. You might have seen in the last, I think it's like 3 or 4 videos, maybe it's a little bit more professional. Well, that's because I hired somebody to actually edit. So I actually think it relieves me to actually shoot more content, because I don't actually have to edit it. And every time I edit a video, it's hours of work typically. So I don't have that on my plate, which I'm super excited about. I've been toying with like bringing back the mental game series, which was really popular when I did it last year. Let me know if you guys found value out of that. I think it was probably more of an impact than I thought it was going to be. So I'm definitely thinking about either bringing that back or maybe even potentially starting a separate channel that's very focused on kind of being better, self-actualization, living life on your terms, and kind of the mental game of business. So I might either add it to the channel and or start a new one and just keep this much more ecom FBA centric. But that's on my mind, so let me know if you have thoughts on that in the comments. And then, like I said, we've really started to hum up the Amazon brand engine again. We've seen some good things happen the last couple of months as we started to focus on that business again. So I'm really excited to really put my back into growing Amazon channel brands a little bit more here on the back half of this year, and obviously share those experiences and those strategies that we find work here on the channel. So that's probably going to be 80%-ish of my focus. And then beyond that, honestly, just like trying to hang out with cool people, work with people I like, work on projects I like on my terms. If you guys have any questions about what's been happening in my life, my businesses, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. I'll try to shoot one of these, maybe every 3 to 6 months, so it's not as much of a gap, just so you guys can get a little bit of a glimpse behind the scenes. I might even do some like vlog style stuff, like day in the life type content as well. But if this has been cool for you, let me know down below. I don't know how this stuff kind of hits, so it's always good to hear your guys' perspective. But thanks for hearing me ramble here for a little bit and give you my update. As always, I'm 100% rooting for you guys. I hope all is going well in your life, in your business. It's not all ups and it's not all downs either. But if we're on this journey together, it definitely makes it more fun and more tolerable. So really glad to have you guys here supporting me in what I do, and I do the same for you. Cheers.